Hello everyone, welcome along to another Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C race and strategy guide. Once again, for the third time in Gran Turismo 7's life, we are heading to Autopolis International Raceway for Daily Race C, albeit this time it is in the Group 3 machinery, whereas previously we were in Group 4 and Super Formula. We've got 10 laps to get round. Tyre wear is at times 1, fuel is at times 6, so you can see what is going to be the major factor in this one. Just the racing hard tyres available, no mandatory rules in terms of tyres or pit stops. BOP is on the mid speed, which surprised me. I thought with the track's nature it would have been on the low speed. Damage is light, it's a formation start, and slipstream is real. So yeah, headed off to Autopolis International Raceway once again for Daily Race C. I know this is not a popular track. PD should know it's not a popular track, and yeah, it's a surprising decision given all the tracks that we've not actually visited in Daily Race C so far. For example, Interlagos, Fuji, Suzuka, or even Blue Moon Bay or Laguna Seca, you know, to name but a few. So, strange decision as far as I'm concerned. We're once again heading to a track that I know is just not popular within the community. Anyway, moving on to the strategy. The car we're going to use for the test is the Porsche 911 RSR. It's a pretty strong car in the Group 3 category. I think it's got the attributes to be pretty strong around this track as well, given it's a fuel saver and there is a couple of elements to the track where the Porsche's prolific traction will come into play. But before we move onto what strategy you do want to do, let me show you what you do not want to do, and that is make a pit stop for fuel. Very often early on in the week I see a lot of players, when it's a fuel race, they don't look at the fuel, they don't consider saving the fuel, they just race until they're about to run out of fuel, or they realise they're going to run out of fuel and they end up making a pit stop and completely ruining their race, when it's definitely not the way to do it. We came into the pits here 5 seconds ahead of P2. We're just going to take on around about 20% of fuel, because even at full throttle the fuel saving is not too dramatic in this one, and as we come out we're about 13 seconds behind P1. So you're looking at losing 17 seconds just for fuel if you force yourself into making that pit stop by not managing the fuel early on in the race. And yeah, that's obviously a huge disadvantage to anyone who is doing the no stopper, and you should be doing the no stopper, because to be honest with you, even though the fuel is at times 6, the fuel saving, the kind of short shifting you have to do is reasonably mild, to be honest with you, to get the car around the full 10 laps without stopping. It's better than in the Porsche anyway. You only have to change, you know, you just have to do some mild short shifting. Around about 80% on the rev bar should see you actually, in my case here, I actually had a little bit of surplus of fuel towards the end of the race. So if I happen to be in a battle with another car, or I need to maybe at some point in the race try and do some overtakes and kind of rev the car out, even with some mild short shifting, I'm going to have a surplus of fuel at the end. And I don't think anyone's going to have any issues doing this. Didn't have to play with the fuel maps at all whatsoever, so that's always a good thing when it comes to a fuel saver. I'm not a big fan of playing with the fuel maps, and I can't imagine too many of the cars in Group 3, with maybe the exception of the Fords, which are very, very thirsty, having too much of a problem getting to the end on the no stopper. But as you can see, coming round the last corner here, we still have half a lap's worth of fuel. So that is the way to do this one. Fairly simple in terms of the strategy. All that remains to be seen as to what car is going to be the meta. I think the Porsche was strong, but I expect the NSX and the Alfa Romeo, along with all the MR cars, will actually be pretty decent around here as well. 17 minutes 45.9 was my finishing time, so fairly short Daily Race C. Certainly scope to have maybe fired on an extra lap, maybe even a couple of extra laps there, which would maybe have made that fuel saving a little bit more of a relevance to the race. But as it is, it's very mild short shifting required to extend that fuel for the no stopper. And yeah, that's pretty much this one in a nutshell. Not a whole lot more I can add to it, except the key to this one is always going to be a strong qualifying time, because it's going to be a no stopper and it's quite hard to overtake at Autopolis anyway. And yes, be very careful of Autopolis as a track. There's a number of corners out there, as I shall point out in the lap guide at the end of the video, which are very dangerous. You will see a lot of people spinning out, I think, in the early days of this one. Autopolis does like to claim quite a few souls. So that's it for the strategy, the race guide. I'm just going to speak for about a minute now having a little bit of a moan, I guess, is the best way to put it. But yeah, the fact is, I mentioned earlier that we are visiting Autopolis for the third time in, what, about 7 months of Gran Turismo 7's life in Daily Race C, and then you've got all those tracks out there that have never actually hosted a Daily Race C, like Laguna Seca, Interlagos, Suzuka, Fuji, Blue Moon Bay, to name but a few. It kind of demonstrates a bit of a worrying trend for sport mode, you know, and it's not for the first time. We have kind of been worried about sport mode for a long time, but for me, sport mode is not, I wouldn't say it's in the worst state, well, maybe it is in the worst state it's ever been in, but I can definitely see a big reduction in the number of people playing the game in sport mode. Anytime you go into a Daily Race C, I'm not aware of a lot of the names in the lobbies, you know, I'm not seeing a lot of the regular names coming back, and yeah, you know, this race was just, it's a typical example. Was the aim for this one to make it a fuel saver? But one run in a Group 3 car would tell you that times 6 fuel is not enough. So up it to 7, or put on an extra lap if you want to actually have that fuel saving having some relevance. As it is, it's just a little bit of mild short shifting to get the car to the end of the race, and it just kind of demonstrates to me that there's very, very little thought or testing going into these daily races, and that's worrying. I'm really hoping that sport mode is going to get a dramatic overhaul at some point in the near future, because I'm just worried about the game, and I think that's what it needs. It needs something to reignite that fire in the player base. It needs something to give people a reason to come back and in the near future keep playing. But yeah, that's enough for that. Let's move on to a lap guide of Autopolis in the Porsche 911 RSR as we approach turn number 1. So looking out for the 100 metre board or the orange flash on the barrier on the left hand side. Difficult little corner, turn number 1. It is an overtaking opportunity, but the fact it's off camber means that it's very easy to defend, or actually quite well, easy enough to defend, very hard for a car to go round the outside of you. Turn number 2, you're looking for the little path or the orange flash on the barrier on the left hand side of the track. Very easy to kind of carry a little bit too much speed in here and go wide, and now you're just kind of trying to find the line of least resistance. Keep it nice and tight to the left hand side to give yourself the best line for this hairpin. Down into first gear, get the car rotated, and then use that Porsche's traction to accelerate out. Coming into a very fast left-hander here, easy to get a little bit too adventurous on the throttle here and understeer wide. You will see cars clip that grass on the right-hand side and spin off. Try not to be one of them. Slowing down here for using the second arrow there before the 50 metre board to slow down for the hairpin. It's a little bit off camber. In cockpit view it's a little bit blind as well, but get the car nice and straight on the throttle down the hill towards probably the most dangerous corner on the track. Now I kind of brake sort of in between the 100 metre and the 50 metre board. I always kind of take this corner a little bit easy. It's so easy to run wide, hit that grass, spin off and speed across the track into the barrier on the right, and that is going to be some substantial damage with the current damage model in the game. Coming through this final sector is just all about threading the needle, honestly. It's all about having the car in the right place on the track, taking the best line. Don't overextend here too much or the car will punish you. You'll be, if you kind of find yourself offline on one corner, you're going to be offline for the whole section. And it's the path on the right hand side, in the inside of the track. Once you see that, you should be able to go on the throttle for the last corner and not understeer wide. And 146.245. We were doing a little bit of fuel saving there as well, as I said earlier on in the video, around about 80% when you can, but that should give you a little bit of a surplus to then push towards the end if necessary, or maybe make a defence or try to go for that overtake. But that's pretty much this video done and dusted. Hopefully it's been useful in some way, shape or form. Certainly not the most inspired race of all time. Apologies for the little bit of a moan in the middle of the video as well, but I did feel like something had to be said. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.